Yes, come in, come in. I just got an email from your teacher, and apparently you've been up to some really awful crap at school this last week. And I don't understand why you keep getting into trouble. We've been doing our best to raise you, and you know that, but you think it's funny to just raise hell all over the place. Well, it's not funny. It's not funny at all. And I'm going to prove it to you because I'm going to read back at everything you did. And you're going to sit there and think about what you've done. Okay? How we deal with it, we'll figure out later. But right now, I want to read back what your teacher has told me. Apparently, you've done 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 things that we're going to talk about. So, let's start with number 1. Apparently, you were, during recess, playing two-hand touch football with your friends. Okay, fine. That's fine. I love me some football myself. But apparently, there was a lot of dead grass everywhere on the school field because people were mowing the field over the weekend. And you thought it was a good idea to take some of that dead grass and shove it down somebody's shirt through the back of their collar. Why? Why? I don't get it. Do you know how uncomfortable that is? Have you ever had grass shoved down your shirt? Because guess what? I have. I've actually had it happen to me when I was your age. There was a kid that did it all the time. And, oh, you saw other kids doing it? I wonder if that kid that did it when I was your age has a child that he taught to do that. And now he's doing it to everybody, and now you're doing it to everybody. Not cool. Not cool. Not cool. Speaking of not cool, apparently you made a GoldenEye reference, which, hey, it's my favorite game. You know that, and I'm glad you enjoy it. But this GoldenEye reference isn't exactly appropriate to do in school. You said, quote, "Don't mess with me. I have a time mine in my desk." You don't joke about having weapons in school. You understand that, right? I mean, kids get hurt at school all the time. You don't joke about this stuff, okay? Okay, glad we have that understanding. Next we have, oh, this one's a doozy. This one, I can't believe the teacher actually fell for this one, but then didn't realize it until much later that it was actually your doing rather than it just being the fault of the victim in question. What am I talking about? You peer reviewed an assignment that was supposed to be an urban legend, a story that you made up, something that is unbelievable. And it was about St. Patty's Day. And it was about a kid who was wearing only green, nothing but green, and still getting pinched by everybody because everybody just wanted to be a bully that bad. Well, you wanted to be a bully too, because when you were assigned to peer review that paper, you corrected everything and changed things like nothing but green to wearing nothing green. Because it makes no sense, so it must be wrong. And then the teacher graded it as a failure because it's too believable. And then that student complained to the teacher, look, it's too believable because you Well, I'm saying you, they didn't say you. That kid changed my entire story, flipped it upside down, and made it too believable because they corrected all the unbelievable parts. You knew that assignment was not supposed to be believable. Did you do that on purpose? Tell me the truth. Did you do that on purpose? Okay. Well, I appreciate you being honest with me. Please don't do that again. All right. Good. Now let's take a look at what is next. Oh, this one is... You wasted half a bottle of sunscreen because you were going on a field trip to the local warm springs with your classmates to have fun and go for a swim. But they gave a big bottle of sunscreen to pass around the whole class. And when you got the bottle, you just unscrewed the lid instead of popping it off and applying a little bit like a normal person does. You thought it was a good idea to unscrew the entire cap and just plop half of that bottle on you. It's supposed to be for everybody, not just you. And then you just threw it all over yourself and laughed like a hyena doing it. Am I right? I mean, this is my impression of what happened because the teacher sent me a video of their impression. They're like, why? Why? You do realize that using that much sunscreen doesn't do anything, right? You just need a little bit to coat your entire skin where the sun is going to see you, and you'll be fine, as long as you don't miss a spot. But throwing in a gigantic goop that is half a bottle's worth is not necessary. All that does is waste a bunch of sunscreen, and a lot of other kids were left sunscreen. Apparently, yeah, some of them didn't get sunscreen, so they got sunburnt, and some just flat out didn't go. You literally ruined an entire field trip for most of the class. How does that make you feel? What do you mean it makes you feel good? It's not supposed to make you feel good. That's an awful thing to do, and you ought to be ashamed of yourself. I'm ashamed of you. Anyway, let's move on. You threw a rock into... Oh my God. This is actually something that somebody did to me when I was your age. And then I'm raising somebody that's doing it to somebody else. You took a tiny little pebble, and a kid about 10 feet from you was eating pudding at lunch. And you decided to throw that pebble at their face while they're eating, and it landed right in their mouth as they put the spoon in their mouth, and they bit down on both of them and felt themselves chewing on that rock. And then you said, according to the teacher, you said, quote, right on target. What the hell is wrong with you? That is completely unacceptable. I'm going to have you call that kid and apologize later. Oh, you don't have their phone number. Well, I can reach out to the teacher and we can get their contact information, and you're going to apologize to them. Well, if you don't want to do that, then the next best thing is we can bring you into the school counselor's office and bring them in there with you so that you can apologize to them in person with the counselor. Is that what you want? It's come to think of it, I'm gonna have you see a counselor anyway because you need it badly. So, hey, if you go with that option, it will save you some time, but you'll be wasting that kid's time because you could just tell them you're sorry. And not one of those half-winded apologies of, I'm sorry, when you're clearly not. No, it's going to come from the heart and soul, and you're going to mean it. Even if you don't mean it right now, I'm going to make sure that you mean it. Okay? Let's see. We're not done yet. There's a couple more. So your class went to the computer lab and used a software called KidPix. Wow, I'm amazed they're still using KidPix. That's that that was one of my favorite programs as a kid. It's basically Photoshop before Photoshop, but made for kids with a lot of gimmicks. So I am familiar. That name didn't age well, but it was a lot of fun. And I remember, I'm glad I used it back in the day because I know exactly what the teacher is talking about. There is a dynamite feature where you erase everything at once and it has a little cartoon explosion. But understandably so, they banned it from use in that classroom because it sounds like a weapon is going off in a school, and that is not okay. So you knew you weren't supposed to do it, and you did it non-stop. Non-stop. Kids were screaming. The teacher was panicking. And you apparently, this is what the teacher told me, were maniacally laughing at everyone's pain. That is a quote. Maniacally laughing at everyone's pain. Stop. Shut up. No. You're not going to maniacally laugh at my pain. I'm not in pain. I'm okay. You're the one who's grounded. We'll talk about the details of your punishment later, but just know it's not going to be fun. It's not going to be good. You are going to wish you didn't do any of these things. Okay? And speaking of which, this last one is a doozy. And I will admit, I did this too as a kid, but I only did it once. I apologized. I accepted the consequences, and I never did it again. And I'm expecting you to do the exact same thing. What did you do? There was a guest brought into your class to read a story. They never met any of you before. So how you behaved was your first impression of them. So they now think that you are a snot-nosed, smart-ass kid. And I would agree with them, but it's my job to make sure that you grow out of that. But I'm really embarrassed for what happened because apparently you decided that it would be funny to pretend that you're in some cartoon where the story was so relaxing and it was like a bedtime story to put you to sleep, and you were cartoonishly snoring. Not real snoring, clearly fake snoring, but really loudly, and interrupting the reading. I'm embarrassed for you. I'm embarrassed for the class. I'm embarrassed for the teacher. And I feel really bad for the guest speaker who wasted their time. Please, for the love of God, never do that again, because no kid of mine is going to grow up thinking that they could just get away with everything and the world revolves around them. I got news flash for you. The world revolves around nobody. It doesn't revolve around me. It doesn't revolve around you. It doesn't revolve around mom. All right? We are all our own individuals, and we need to respect each other and coexist. You can't deliberately make somebody feel like crap. You can't pull these power moves on people and expect them to respect you, because the world does not work that way. And even if you manipulate them into respecting you anyway, eventually they're going to catch on. Eventually they're going to leave. Eventually they're going to despise you for it. Okay? So I suggest you get your act together while you're still young, so you maybe will grow up to be a level-headed human being that isn't blindly subservient to everybody. You still need to think for yourself, but don't expect everybody else to just think you're grandiose. Think you're this special human being. You are special to me. Everybody's special in their own way. Don't get me wrong. But nobody is automatically more special than everybody else. Okay? I want you to understand that. I want you to remember that. And I want you to operate in a way that's going to be better for you, for me, for your mom, for your classmates, and anybody that you may have any kind of relationship with when you're older. That's really important, okay? It's time you start to learn respect. And I'm not talking about blind obedience, although you do need to follow the rules. They're there for a reason. But once you grow up, you need to have a good understanding of what's right and wrong. Because if you don't, it's going to be a bad situation for you and everyone else around you. And I don't think that's what you want. I hope that's not what you want, okay? Okay, good. Good. Now, as a result of all these actions, you're going to be grounded for a month. You're not going to be allowed to go hang out with friends after school. You're not going to have access to any of your movies or your video games. You're not going to be able to play outside with your friends on the block. Just 1 month, though. Okay? And during that month, you and I are going to be doing some chores together. I'm going to teach you discipline, respect, self-respect included. Okay? After a month, you're going to come out a much more level-headed kid. And I promise you, you're going to appreciate that you went through this. You may not know it, but eventually you're going to. And I can speak from experience because when I was growing up, my parents, your grandparents, were very strict about not having a bunch of sweets in the house when all my friends got all the sugary crap. But you know what? As a result, I grew up much healthier, and I'm a lot more strict of what I eat than even my parents were of what I ate when I was a kid. But that was my choice. You can make your own choices when you're an adult, but it's critical that you learn how to properly make those choices and be willing to accept the consequences of your choice. Because even when you have absolute freedom of making all the choices you have, and you don't have me or your school to tell you what to do, I mean, you still have to follow the law, obviously. But besides that, when you're older, you're going to be on your own. You're going to be able to make your own decisions, which is great, but you have to understand that every decision has a consequence, and you got to make sure that your decision is worth that consequence, okay? And you're going to learn that everything you've done the last week that I just read to you is not worth the consequences, other than the fact that you're going to learn some good lessons from me. And I will continue to teach you good, positive lessons that feel less like a punishment when you don't misbehave like this. Okay? Good. Glad we had this talk. Okay. Now go to your room.